Yeah, hello. My name is Michal Nasiadka. I'm the project team lead for Kolla since yoga release. So that's seventh cycle. Um, this session is Kolla user forum. Um, so I'm putting that session usually on a lot of conferences just to talk with current and prospective Kolla-Ansible and Kayobe users. Um, so just out of curiosity, how many of you use Kolla or Kolla-Ansible today? Yay. And I guess the rest is interested or planning to use it. So, okay, thank you. So yes, next week there's the project teams gathering. So I'm inviting all of you to join. Um, there are links in the Etherpad. Kolla, Kolla-Ansible and Kayobe sessions are on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Um, the slots might not be like West Coast compatible, but Midwest should be fine. If you'd like to touch any subjects, please just write them in the Etherpad and we can coordinate with your time zone if that's required. Yeah, so Kolla, as all other deployment projects, is cycle trailing, which means that the coordinated release of OpenStack for Dalmatian is out, but the deployment projects haven't released yet. We are usually trailing just to adapt to all the changes that have happened in the current release. So we usually have around 3 months time. Well, the deadline is exactly 3 months after the coordinated release. But we should be like releasing closer than last time. I think a year ago it was like 6th of December, so Christmas time. Yeah. So the features that we've merged or are close to merging because we're cycle trailing are mainly Ubuntu Noble support. So we have new Ubuntu with Python 3.12. So that's what we will support in Dalmatian. We will backport that functionality to Caracal. So people running Ubuntu can, in Caracal, upgrade to Ubuntu Noble and then do the Slurp upgrade to Epoxy when it's out, right? Yes, we have a lot of improvements, like quality of life improvements. So I don't know how many of you know the Kolla-Ansible validate config command. It validates configuration of a lot of services. So now it also validates configs for Prometheus and some other infrastructure services. So it just parses config to make sure that the service will be able to start with that configuration. Kolla-Ansible CLI has been rewritten to Python after like 5 years of bash. Yeah, that's quite nice. We've done a lot of like advanced handling for RabbitMQ Slurp upgrades because RabbitMQ doesn't really support upgrading across two releases at the same time. And in Antelope, we have, I think, RabbitMQ 3.10 and Caracal has 3.12. So we had to add additional commands to upgrade to a newer RabbitMQ release. Although if you're not doing the upgrade, you can still upgrade RabbitMQ to a currently supported release in Antelope, for example. Yeah, so now, so up until now, the default Galera load balancing configuration was HA proxy. We are switching that to like SQL dedicated proxy SQL proxy that will load balance the traffic in a better way because HA proxy only does active passive for Galera. So basically all writes and reads end up on one node. So now it will be handled better. And we also added support for Prometheus scraping proxy SQL metrics for monitoring. There have been a lot of Ansible performance improvements, like dusted out patches that have been lying around for the last 4 cycles. basically around like large scale Kolla-Ansible improvements like filters that make deployments faster. Basically, the select services enabled and map to host filter saves around 2 to 3 minutes per hypervisor. And if you have like hundreds of them, then you can see the difference. Yeah, we also added some additional options to configure neutron physical networks, so you don't end up with like FizzNet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you need to know which one is which. Now you can call it FizzNet management, FizzNet high speed, or whatever, which probably makes life better. And the HAProxy TLS config is now hardened according to Mozilla modern recommendations. So that means, for example, 6-year-old Android phones, I'm sorry, they're not going to connect. But there's an option to lower the TLS requirements, so that's fine. So on Kayobe front, we finally support EFI and Q35 seed and infra VMs. Basically, it was we were forced to do that because Rocky Linux cloud-based images that we use for the seed VM do not support legacy anymore. So that was fun to find. There's support for Cumulus Linux 5.
Question was that, has that been backported?
Which one, the EFI? Yeah, it has been backported. It's just not enabled by default. Yeah. So we have those Cumulus Linux additions, basically Cumulus Linux 5 support. And ironic defaults have changed. So Kayobe no longer overrides the defaults from upstream ironic. So hardware types and interfaces. If you relied on the defaults that have been in Kayobe, just make a note. Well, there's a list in release notes what has changed, so that doesn't break your environment. Yeah, so that's like a summary of features. Yeah, so I have some discussion topics, feedback topics. So first of all, is anybody running ARM with Kolla-Ansible?
Yes and no. Actually, there was a period of time where we were using Kolla and Kolla-Ansible to deploy Zune workers onto Raspberry Pis in bulk. We stopped doing that for various reasons. We've also got a number of different flavors of ARM bare metal node right now, but there's interest in running them as hypervisors.
Okay.
I'm not today, but I'm getting ready to deploy. I have 2 seed nodes, and they just told me to buy 6 more. But those are the NVIDIA Grace architecture.
Okay. I'm asking because the support in Kolla-Ansible is not great. What we test is Debian, which is sometimes people choice, sometimes not. So we're trying to improve that. The OpenDevCI infrastructure for ARM is also not the best, but it's improving. So hopefully we will get broader coverage for CI ARM jobs in Kolla and Kolla-Ansible. Please.
I'm just holding it.
Okay, so from like Kolla community perspective, we've noticed for a long time that there have not been any participants from North America, or basically that time zone. So we moved the meeting slot. It's like 3 p.m. Central Europe time. So it's probably not really friendly for most of America's time zones. So if you'd like to attend the weekly meetings and it doesn't suit you, please just best, contact me so we can try to maybe organize some alternate slots for North America time zone. So it's better for you to attend. Yeah. And as always, we're happy to invite any new people to the community. Like, we don't really have the resources now to review all the patches. So if you push any patches or create any bugs and you'd like assistance with anything or just prioritizing stuff, IRC or the mailing list is probably the best choice. Okay, improvement suggestions. Steps toward reproducible container builds. Current tar and git sources break the Docker build cache by introducing timestamps. Yeah. Well, we build container images from tarballs, right? Which are on the OpenDev site, but still you can override that to do it in a different way. But I guess we could remove the .git subdirectories, but then like it's the only place for metadata that we have for now, right? From PBR.
Yes, and PBR is the bane of my existence. I'm maintaining a lot of forks in what I'm doing, and Kolla has largely been very good in letting us run our own build pipeline and maintain our own images of those forks. But the Git source type, you get timestamps, and you get just non-deterministic changes in that .git directory on subsequent checkouts, even from the same source commit. And that it plays havoc with Docker caching and layer caching. And so, of course, I tried just a proof of concept of literally just, take the Git directory, make a snapshot, stuff it in a tarball instead of cloning it every time, and just using that as a local source to keep PBR happy. And I was getting like build times for let's build every container down from 30 minutes to like 3 minutes because it was actually using layer caches.
Okay, that's great.
And that's, it starts to become fast enough to have it in like more of an interactive development workflow. I'm going to run CI on my changes locally, and did this work?
Yeah. Would you be able to add a topic in the PTG etherpad that is linked in this etherpad so we could discuss that on the PTG? Ideally, if you have patches that you could push, we're happy to review those. Okay.
Yeah, I linked in a terrible proof of concept here, but it should at least be some food for thought. I can link it into the other one as well.
Yeah, that was.
So would a stupid kludge like just normalizing the timestamps on the Git checkout fix this?
So it's not a complete fix. So normalizing the timestamps in the labels, in the tarball output, and the Git directories is part of a required fix. But the things in the Git like .pack subdirectories, the hashes change based on the timestamp at which they were generated. And so it's the same contents, but it's all structured differently, and I haven't found a way to make it reproducible. And I tried to just pull the Git directories out and use environment variables to tell PBR what to do, and that doesn't work for every project, even though PBR claims it will. Sorry, this reminded me of like the most frustrating bug I have ever dealt with in Kolla, and I don't know if it's actually a bug, but it has to do with PBR again. And it's PBR computes the version of your service based on how many commits are there since the last tag. If you're building from a fork and you have not synchronized all of the tags from upstream to your fork, the PBR will generate a different version, and then Kolla sees this, and this changes how it resolves dependencies. And Kolla will start installing, say, upstream Horizon over your fork of Horizon, and you will be baffled for 2 days as to why your changes aren't showing up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we can do anything about that. We could write some macro just to check if like your Git repo is reasonable, but then it will add time to the build, which you don't want, right? So yeah, if you can raise a bug, we can document it. Yeah. Okay. So next one is Podman support on rel-ish deploys. I think we have Podman support, at least since Caracal, or even earlier, Bobcat.
You want to talk about the systemd changes to support that as well?
Yeah, so we basically, for those that do not know, I think the systemd changes went in Antelope. They should be working better now than in start of Antelope, but we had to move all the, so in the past we used the Docker engine functionality to restart containers. That was usually working. And then we had to move to systemd to support both Docker and Podman. So I'm sure everybody that uses Kolla-Ansible had a lot of fun restarting container and then realizing that systemd is like you stop the container and then it's still alive, right? So systemd is starting that, yeah. I think we also fixed the case for people that use Docker Live Restore. So Docker Live Restore is a functionality that if you stop Docker engine, all the containers are still running for like upgrades. When you do like updates or upgrades of Docker and so on, it doesn't affect the running services. So with systemd, we had like sort of a misconfiguration where the systemd units were depending on the Docker service instead of just assuring that they run after Docker service, right? So when Docker engine was restarted, systemd restarted all the containers, but we're back to what we had before the systemd era. So everything works now, and yes. So there is Podman support, but currently there is no support for migrating from Docker to Podman. But there are some nice folks in the community from Tieto Every that are working towards that. There will be a CI job that will just test the migration from Docker to Podman. It's a bit problematic for the running virtual machines that will need to be like live migrated to like separate hosts, but apart of that, we haven't seen any problems in testing that. So yes, yeah. So yes, we have Podman. Somebody pasted.
In terms of other migrations, do you want to talk about the RabbitMQ changes with Caracal?
Yes. So since Caracal, the default is RabbitMQ quorum queues instead of what we did in the past for RabbitMQ HA, which was classical mirrored queues version 1. So basically, we recommend running quorum queues. If you don't want to run quorum queues, you can still use classical mirrored queues by changing a variable. But with RabbitMQ 4.0, classical mirrored queues are gone, which RabbitMQ 4.0 will probably be like built in Kolla containers in epoxy cycle. So basically, the only path forward is migrating to quorum queues, which means that you need to stop all the services that are running, connecting to RabbitMQ, clear all the queues, reconfigure all the services, and start them again so they create quorum queues. There is like a section in the documentation about that. There's like a dedicated command that does the migration. So yeah. And there's a pre-check that if you don't have quorum queues, just classical mirrored queues, we won't reconfigure your environment. So even when you do upgrade pre-checks, it will warn you that you need to adapt, right? Yeah.
So on RabbitMQ and quorum queues, this may absolutely be something that I was doing wrong, but I had a lot of headaches when we upgraded from Xena to Antelope with RabbitMQ, where for most of our sites it was fine. On one site, because it had a single controller node, and we were upgrading the OS anyway. And as part of this, we had stopped RabbitMQ. And then when attempting to continue the upgrade, basically, you know, RabbitMQ would complain about the right flags to continue don't exist. And I basically had to kind of roll back manually that part of the upgrade and, try to get back to a state that could continue. And I think this is probably just like I found some some bad case, some transitional case where if you stopped, you couldn't recover.
Yeah, most probably. So yeah, we've been very bad in the project in RabbitMQ in the yoga cycle where we stopped doing HAQs and started thinking that relying on Oslo messaging to correctly do its own stuff without HA would be okay. It was okay until some cases happened, right? So that's when we changed. I think in Antelope we defaulted to classical mirrored queues and HA, which worked fine for majority of cases. Now I think quorum queues is working fine, but there are also some improvements in Oslo messaging that we'll need to adapt before upgrading to RabbitMQ 4.0, which will make life better. For example, message streams for RabbitMQ notifications that are still not supported yet in Kolla-Ansible. And there's the new queue manager stuff in Oslo messaging that requires shared memory access and the same shared memory. So in container world, it's going to be fun. Probably we'll need to bind mount dev SHM or something similar. But yeah, the queue manager in Oslo messaging will ensure that currently, after restarting services, it's like the queue name that OpenStack services uses, like queue name and random string, right? And now, if you restart that, it recreates the queue with a new random string, which is, it seems RabbitMQ doesn't really like that. So the Oslo messaging folks have implemented queue manager, but they haven't really thought about container environments. So we need to solve the shared mem case, but yeah, it's probably going to be an epoxy material. It's too late in the cycle to start implementing that. Yeah. Okay. Patterns for including non-Kolla services to be deployed alongside Kolla. Vendor data service to work with neutron metadata. Well, I think, yeah, like we've been thinking about allowing, like, for example, adding breakpoints in services, like that you can include your own roles in something. But I think nobody was persistent enough to like contribute that code upstream and go through the review process. So if there are people interested, add a topic to the PTG.
Yeah, this is another thing where I think it's something that we've done a lot internally, but, again, haven't pursued the extra work to try to get it accepted upstream. For the most part, we're just hooking in at the end of the post-deploy scripts to do the configuration for whatever pile of extra things we need. Yeah, just repeating the question. So are we talking about containerized things? For the most part, yes. Right now it's terribly hacky. A lot of it is containers that we had our own systemd units deploying before Kolla moved to using systemd units with that. I would really like just some pattern to follow where maybe instead of the forks I'm doing for Kolla and Kolla-Ansible, maybe there was a way to specify. There's already, I know in Kolla, that like here's extra Docker files or Docker directories to include, but it's never been clear to me how to actually configure that.
Yeah, so now there is. We've merged the patch that also allows you to define users that should be created in addition to the default users that you have in Kolla. So probably that support is better and now documented. So if you can check if that fits your case, that would be nice. If not, raise a bug, write somewhere. Yeah, we'll fix that. For the Kolla-Ansible case, yeah, we would probably need to analyze, some use cases to see if like deploying something at the end of site YAML run is enough, or do we need some breakpoints in some services, like if you need that running before, I don't know, Neutron deploy or something like that, right? Yeah, but it's perfectly fine. I mean, it's like as usual. We just need people to be persistent enough, write code, go through reviews, attend the PTG. Yeah. Okay.
What about onboarding for new people then? What's an easy way for them to get started?
So there is called a whiteboard. Yeah, I'll add that in a minute to that Etherpad. So we basically manage the project in an Etherpad called Kolla Whiteboard, where there's a lot of links and there's a presentation, probably a bit outdated, around onboarding. But at least there are slides around how the code in Kolla, Kolla-Ansible, and Kayobe is structured, where to find things. We probably could update that, but we would need a volunteer for that, as always in the community. I'm happy to help anybody that has like a list of bullet points for things that are like outdated and we can just update it. Yeah, so I'll add that to that Etherpad. It's also in the topic on the IRC channel, and it's linked in the various other places. And we also have links for Gerrit dashboards for reviewing patches and other things there. Cycle priorities, PTG links, everything is in there. Okay. Any other questions? Fantastic. Thank you for coming.